I knew my brother-in-law was not to be trusted, and when I found out he was doing something behind my sister's back, oh boy, I will not stand for it. And you know what I decide to do? I march into their household. I don't care what my sister says. I'm going to handle this one. I'm 46 and male, and I live with my wife on the outskirts of town. My twin children are in college, and I mostly spend my days at the law firm I work at, and then my nights with my wife. Another favorite pastime of mine is talking to my sister Selena. She's the only living relative from my immediate family, and though she's not the type to always keep in touch, I make sure to always call her or text her. These days, she's been more distant than usual. I thought that she was too busy or that something more serious happened, until after a phone call I had with my nephew just yesterday. Words can't even explain how upset the conversation got me, and my wife had to plead with me several times before I could calm down. I wasn't even in the least bit embarrassed for losing my cool afterward, which is usually the case. Imagining investing so much in something, perhaps in a business, only for it to crash and burn before your very eyes. My nephew Gabriel, 13, called me up, speaking in a hushed tone like he didn't want to get caught. I was immediately worried, but he told me everything's fine. He told me that he's caught his parents arguing about money, and his mom was crying. Gabriel had pleaded with me to send money to his mother so that they would not be kicked out of their home. I told him that I would get back to him before ending the call. I won't lie, I had thought it was a prank call in the beginning. After all, Gabriel was still a child and might be looking to stir up trouble for the fun of it. After thinking it through, I began to doubt myself. He sounded worried for it to be a prank, and then there was the fact that my sister stopped responding to the text that I sent her and taking my calls. After discussing it with my wife, I decided to call to make sure that Gabriel had told me the truth. The first person I called was my brother-in-law, Alfred. He didn't take either of the calls, and I made sure I tried my sister instead, not thinking she would take the call, and to my surprise she answered, apologized for ignoring me for so many times, and that was the last thing on my mind at the moment. And when I relayed my conversation with Gabriel, only to get silence as a reply, I knew that my nephew had not lied to me at that moment. I didn't mean to be harsh during the phone call with my sister, but she was quiet and I needed her to tell me everything that's going on. She eventually spoke, and the more she talked, the more I got upset. She told me that things have been difficult for years, and that while she was struggling to make ends meet, it was becoming harder. She had mentioned that Gabriel had even started odd jobs in the neighborhood to help out just because she, my sister, could not provide the money for every single thing he needed. She was on the verge of tears, and I felt something eating me up on the inside. My sister was working herself to the bone, and here I was with more than enough to take care of my family thanks to my and my wife's combined efforts. Something inside me just told me to ask how Alfred was handling the entire situation. I've never really liked him, but I tolerated him because my sister was in love with him. Well, at least at the time, and besides, I'd figured out that he was doing his best to turn the situation over there around. No man would want to see his wife suffer and sound like my sister did. At least I would not want that for my wife. Selena had not said a word after I had asked my question, and I began to wonder if something was wrong with my brother-in-law. He had not been taking my calls when I did bother to check up on him, and despite us being far from close, we were still family. So concern was inevitable. I thought the worst at the moment, and when my sister did not give me a good answer, my fear increased. She had thanked me for checking up on the family, promising to be fine, before ending the call. I almost called her back, but decided against it. After all, seeing for myself would answer all the questions that I had. I was very worried about Alfred at that point. Selena had not mentioned him at all, and all Gabriel said was that his parents were arguing. What state was Gabriel in? And was it really the bills that they were arguing about? A few years after Selena had gotten married to Alfred, he had come to me and asked for help. I lent him money over the years for one reason or the other, with my sister in mind, of course. I remember him talking about starting up something, and the money I've given him was more than enough for it. What happened to that? It had taken a while to reach Gabriel, and even despite that, we did not speak for more than a minute. I'm guessing his mom was watching him closely. I managed to get the house address from him, and I asked if anything was wrong with Alfred. I'd gotten a no as a response, and when I asked if Alfred was working as hard, I got a no as well. Before I could ask more questions, the call was disconnected. It's funny how quickly a person's emotions change because I now feel anger towards my brother-in-law instead of initial concern. I'm not sure what Gabriel meant with his replies, but if it's what I think it is, then Alfred will hear it from me. I'll just have to see for myself in a few days before taking my action. Update number 1. My suspicions were right. Lord knows that Selena's the only reason I have not dealt with her husband in the manner he deserves. After taking a flight out of the state and staying at a hotel for 2 days, I visited my sister. She wasn't home and Gabriel had answered the door. I had talked to my nephew for some time, thinking he was home alone or with a nanny. When I heard Alfred's voice calling for Gabriel as he was coming down the stairs, I took in his appearance. He looked like he had just woken up from a nap and seemed surprised to see me, and it wasn't the pleasant kind of surprise. After an awkward greeting, I told him that I'd come to see how things were in the household. I gave him a quick recap of my conversation with Selena, making sure to leave out any parts that would incriminate Gabriel. I wasn't sure of it all at the time, but now that I think about it, I know for a fact that Alfred was annoyed after hearing that Selena disclosed her family situation to me. It was hard to find something to discuss with Alfred, believe me. I eventually opted for business. I'd asked if his business needed help, and at first he seemed like he was going to ask for it, before declining politely. I asked what he was doing to help out at home since he was in the house before 8 p.m. Well, my sister was out. Alfred chose that time just to ask about my job, wife, and children, which was a clear move to distract me. I told him the basics, and he had excused himself, informing Gabriel to get me refreshments. As a father, I have to say that I was shocked when Gabriel refused to speak. Even in his father's absence, he had done what Alfred had asked of him, and when he returned, I tried to get some information out of him, since his father was proving to be stubborn. Gabriel. He answered me without giving anything vital. I deduced that it's because of his dad. When my visit was over, I knew my intuition was right. Gabriel had told me his mom would be back before 9 p.m., that his father was doing the best he could, and that he was not really comfortable with my questions. I know you might think I'm overthinking everything, but this is from a child who called to tell me that things were not okay in his family. Something my sister could not do apparently for years. Selena eventually came back, and while I could see that she was happy to see me, she also had fear in her eyes. She refused to sit and talk to me, and I had to follow her into the kitchen after Gabriel had left us in the room. I asked where she was, assuming that she had gone shopping because she had returned with some grocery bags. I saw a few plates of food instead, and we were both silent as she loaded all of it into the freezer. My silence was because I was waiting for an answer. By the way, my sister had asked if I had eaten. Typical. And when I told her no, I'm fine, she told me to leave, promising to visit me when she had time. I've been dismissed quite a number of times by family members of clients of mine, but that hurt. I felt it on a different level. I told her that I wasn't going anywhere till she properly spoke to me and we reached a compromise, and I'd stayed for 10 minutes before leaving. Selena replied to my questions just like Gabriel had, making me wonder if they practiced their replies in preparation for situations just like this one. When she told me that she's been working before returning home, I got upset. I yelled for Alfred to come down, hoping that we would arrive at a solution. Selena looked older than she was, and though I could tell she was healthy enough, resembled a sick person. She had stopped me from calling Alfred down, and that's when my suspicions returned to full force. Alfred had eventually come downstairs after I threatened to go to his room and use force if I had to. After learning that he stayed home all day, every day, doing nothing to support the family, I damn near lost it. He wasn't even ashamed to admit it, and I charged at him, asking how he could let his wife and children work while he remained idle. Alfred pushed me off him, telling me to leave his home. So, I'm currently ashamed that I acted in such a barbaric manner in front of my sister and nephew. But back then, all I could think about was beating Alfred to a pulp. Selena stepped in between us and begged me not to do anything rash. and when I saw the sadness and desperation on her face, I'd let my useless brother-in-law go. I left on my own accord because I could not stand staying in the house anymore. I talked to my wife over the phone and she was upset, which fueled my anger. It's been 2 days since I visited and I'm still upset. Alfred will not get off so easily. He'll either be a man and take care of his family or face the consequences of his negligence. Update number 2. Alfred must think that he's having the upper hand now, after threatening my sister with a divorce because of me. She called me crying her eyes out and telling me that I've ruined her marriage. After managing to calm her down, she told me that Alfred wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I reasoned that it made no sense because she was the breadwinner, but she had told me that Alfred had gone to a law court in the city the day before. She begged me to fix things between me and Alfred, and despite it seeming akin to swallowing poison, I'd agreed to do so because she asked. So I visited the day after my call with Selena. Alfred was the one home, and I was partially happy because I wasn't so ready to face my nephew and sister after the little display that I'd put on. I did not apologize for my actions though, at least not directly, because Alfred definitely deserved everything that I'd done to him that day. Instead, I told him that I had acted irrationally, promising not to do such again. Alfred seemed to have taken that as an apology, so I let it be. He didn't look happy to see me, and I'm sure that he wanted me to leave as soon as possible. I wanted to, so the feeling was mutual. Just staying within the same space as he was taking more self-control than I thought it would. Anyways, I began to talk about starting up a family business. I plan to retire in 3 years' time, and me and my wife have been saving up some money to start up something, not wanting to rely on retirement money for the rest of our days. We don't know if what it is going to be yet, but I'm sure we'll figure it out before time runs out. And most likely it'll include an establishment that people use all the time. Alfred did not even seem mildly interested, asking me why I was telling him about a business. I got annoyed and, kept making it more and more obvious that he wasn't even ready to lift a finger to help my sister out. He was in the house on a weekday afternoon, and he seemed unbuffered about it. I decided to shift tactics, knowing that I was going nowhere. I thought finding the root of the cause of the problem would be helpful in finding the solution. So I asked Alfred about the money that I lent him over the years, reminding him that he had spoken about a business he wanted to start. He was silent about everything, and my gut told me that something was wrong. He later told me that the plan had been bust, and when I asked what it was that he did with the money exactly, there was no reply. I also asked when he was going to return the money I lent him, and Alfred stared at me with the funniest expression on his face. I would have burst out laughing if I wasn't so upset. He had asked why I expected him to return the money, and I reminded him that it was lent money. Why he was acting like the concept was foreign to him was beyond me. Alfred then informed me that he had not agreed to return the money, and I reminded him that I had given him a deadline, even though it had long passed. My foolish brother-in-law kept arguing that we both had to have signed something like that, or it was done for the bank or something, to have been considered a loan. Before dismissing the topic entirely, the thought of him hitting crossed my mind again. I wanted to strike him, but I decided against it. My sister would get upset and it might worsen the tension between her and her husband. So, I left soon after discussing the loan topic because I refused to stay in the same room with a man I could not reason with. Perhaps Alfred forgot I was a lawyer when he was laying terms in front of me. Though he was slightly right, it was going to be difficult to prove my case in front of a court without substantial evidence. And I almost smacked myself in the head, wondering why I had not thought of asking Alfred to sign something at the time. I'd never expected something like this to happen, truth be told. I might have disliked Alfred from the very get-go, but I thought that he was at least reasonable. I had to call my wife and tell her absolutely everything. She sympathized with me and asked me to get some bank statements ready. Then I informed Alfred that I was going to court. The plan was to scare Alfred whether or not going to court was going to prove helpful. When she heard about the divorce, she laughed. I missed her more at that moment. That was when we came up with the plan. but my sister had to be in on it for it to even remotely work. After doing some thinking on my own, I remembered a recording I made of a conversation between myself and Alfred. It was one of the reasons I had not bothered presenting documents for him to sign when lending him money, and after searching for some time on my hard drive and cell phone, I found what I was looking for. The audio was more than enough to prove to teach Alfred a lesson. I managed to laugh properly for the first time in days, and I made a phone call to my bank almost immediately. And after a reminder to visit the nearest branch over here, I was beyond happy. Soon after, my sister called asking if I've spoken to Alfred about the divorce. I had not, and I told her that I tried to make things better between the two of us, which was not a total lie. I asked Selena to visit me if she wanted to know how to make things better, when in fact I planned to do the exact opposite. She was with me within 2 hours, and after talking some sense into her, which took a while, she was in on it. If our plan worked, then Alfred was going to man up and take care of his family. If it did not, she would have one less person to take care of and some money to go with it. I saw it as a win-win situation, and the only reason I had to involve my sister was because I needed her signature on the divorce papers. Alfred would take things seriously if they weren't just empty threats, and that's what I wanted to happen. He was way too comfortable being idle, something I'd never seen before. I'll be visiting in a few days' time, and I can tell my plan will work, and that the outcome will put a smile on my face. Alfred is screwed. Update number 3. Hey guys, so I ended up winning the court case, and my brother-in-law's finally where I want him to be between a rock and a hard place. Selena is not as upset as I thought she would be, which I'm grateful for. Perhaps she's seen that her husband's really just a living deadweight that she needs to get rid of. Anyways, I've gotten the divorce papers with my sister's signature ready before visiting. The bank statements were going to take some time, but I did not need them at that precise moment. I'd thrown the divorce papers in Alfred's face. Well, reveling in his shock, which grew when he discovered that Selena had actually signed the papers, his shock wore off when he saw the smug look on my face. He told me my sister was going to be homeless if we went along with it. His explanation made perfect sense, and as he talked I realized that I'd believed that Alfred was reasonable, well, because he thought ahead, unlike most people did. His only flaw was that he did not think others were like him, and for some reason I kept thinking he forgot I worked as a lawyer. I knew how to bend a situation to favor me in court, something I picked up over the years. Alfred had informed me that a prenuptial agreement had not been signed after his marriage to my sister, so he was going to fight tooth and nail to get the house as alimony. It was sad to see that my brother-in-law could not care less about getting a divorce from my sister, but it was my motivator as well. Now that I could see his true feelings and intentions, Selena was not going to stay married to an idiot, as long as I could do something about it, and I was going to. I'd briefed my sister before she went to court with Alfred. I knew that was going to be asked, and why the judges would refuse to grant alimony. Now, Alfred's theory was that he was the poor spouse, right? Much more poor than my sister. And so that would mean he would be the one getting the alimony instead of Selena. Things would have gone smoothly with that logic, but he forgot one important detail. He was the poor spouse for sure, but it was a choice by him. I'm not a divorce attorney, but I had to speak to a friend to be sure that Alfred would end up with nothing. And that was what happened at the end. He even tried to lie in the court. But when the truth was discovered, he was not granted any form of alimony, and Selena had pleaded with the court to go easy on him, much to my annoyance. He was not sick, he was not disabled, and had no reason to stay home except for sheer laziness, something the female judge had, well, not taken lightly. When I was sure that my sister had her house, I went over, smiling as I watched Alfred pack up his crap. I'd informed him that we were going to court as well because he refused to pay back the loan I gave him, and he was upset. You know what I did? I laughed in his face. He promised that I would lose the case, and I most likely would have, if not for the audio recording I had of our agreement. It was long, tiresome, and annoying, but after another hearing and trial, I won the case. Alfred was to pay back all the money within 2 years or go to prison. He has nowhere to live and has a huge sum of money to return to me. It was a fun, laughing scenario. I had a fun time laughing about the entire thing with my wife. She was happy to have me home again, and as I told her everything, her smile grew wider by the second. I called Selena yesterday, and while she was devastated by the turn of events, she promised she would be fine. Gabriel told me that his mom seemed better because she worked less now, and had started sleeping for longer hours. Finally, I heard that Alfred has been struggling to get a job. He managed to get one at a car repair shop, and obviously that won't do him any good. Selena's begged me to not let her ex-husband go to prison, but this will be the first time I'll be turning a deaf ear to my sister's request. Well, Alfred's a terrible man, and he's clearly deceived and traumatized my sister so much that she doesn't even know what's good for her anymore. If he can't afford to pay for what he owes me, I won't hesitate to have him thrown in the slammer. I have a feeling that even if he works himself to the bone, he still won't be able to pay me back. Well, you know what? That's fine by me. I really don't care about someone as horrible as him. Anyways, on a light note, Selena bought the idea of starting up a family business like I knew she would. We're thinking of starting it up sooner than initially planned, and everyone's really excited about it. So I just love how the story ended with Selena and OP talking about starting up that family business that they've wanted to start for so long. And also, let's go ahead and talk about Selena's significant other and what a true piece of crap he was, because I'm gonna let you guys know right now, the comment section was not happy with little old Alfred. They were saying that he was an abuser, he was narcissistic, he was enabled by his wife Selena, who just let him stay at home while she worked her butt off. But there were also commenters who were talking about Selena's stuck in an abusive relationship, and if it wasn't for OP, I don't think that would have ended for a long, long time. And also, let's shout out to Gabriel, who was the one who tipped this entire situation off and was able to get his mom the help that she truly, truly needed. And for that one, guys, I want to know your thoughts on it. So let's talk about this story in the comment section down below. My name's Mr. Reddito. Yes, I narrate these stories every day, and yes, if you do enjoy them, you can watch them daily by clicking that subscribe button. I hope you guys did enjoy today's story, and once again, have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.